Everybody encounters problems in prayer. And the simple truth is that all of the problems in prayer come about as a result of the withdrawal of consolation from prayer. Now, what do I mean by consolation? I mean any good feeling, any good sensation, any sense of satisfaction which we draw from our prayer. And these feelings can be withdrawn just for a moment, or they can be withdrawn for the whole of our period of prayer. Every Christian encounters at a certain point this withdrawal of consolation. However, there are two reasons why the Lord has to withdraw this consolation from our time of prayer. The first reason is that if we go to pray expecting good feelings, we become hooked on the good feelings. Therefore, our reason for praying ceases to be in order to love God and becomes in order to get good feelings from our prayer. We are loving the good feelings and not loving God. The second reason concerns faith. If I knew for a fact that Almighty God existed, I knew for a fact that the Almighty Creator of heaven and earth had called me to be a follower of His, I knew it in the same way that I know that 2 + 2 = 4, then in a certain sense I wouldn't be free to choose to love Him or not. My reason would logically tell me I've got to follow this Almighty God who is calling me. Likewise, in my prayer, if I always had a deep and profound certainty of the presence and the activity of Almighty God in my prayer, on some level I wouldn't be free to choose whether to continue to engage in the life of prayer or not. And therefore Almighty God, from time to time, and sometimes for very long periods, withdraws the consolation that we receive in prayer. And in so doing, He's really giving us the room to be free and the room to make a continued choice to love Him by coming along to pray. So problems in prayer are necessary parts of praying and being a praying Christian. The reason why the withdrawal of consolation from our prayer creates such a problem for us is that as human beings we've become very used to assessing the world by our feelings. How often in a day do we ask ourselves how we feel about something, and how often do we let our feelings affect our decisions and the way we act? It's not wrong to have feelings, and it's not wrong to act upon feelings sometimes. As human beings, feelings are part of our nature. They're something given to us by God, and they can be good. However, because of sin, our feelings have now sometimes gone out of sync with the truth. Something which is wrong, I might feel right about. I might feel an attraction to do something which I know to be wrong. We call this a temptation. In prayer it can be a problem because it means that when we don't feel the prayer is good, we think, well, the prayer mustn't actually be good. And yet that's not the case at all. Actually, sometimes the most powerful prayer that draws us most near to Almighty God can be the prayer which doesn't feel very good at all. And so we have to be prepared to face up to the fact that in our prayer it's sometimes going to be difficult because it won't always feel really very nice. I've had it said to me that, Peter, you're a seminarian, prayer must be quite different for you, maybe even prayer might be quite easy for you. Let me assure you, prayer has not always been easy for me, any more than it's easy for anybody. I can assure you, I have spent whole holy hours in my life sat thinking about a new mobile phone I'd like to buy, or some other thing that's bothering me on my mind. For all of us, prayer will at times be nothing less than a battle. The problem, however, is that we are all so tempted to judge our prayer by how we felt about it and how we felt during it. And yet this is the wrong question to be asking ourselves when we finished our times of prayer. At the end of your prayer, I want to challenge you just to ask yourself this and only this question. Did I, for the period of my prayer, try and pray to Almighty God? Did I try and give myself to God in that time of prayer? And if you did sincerely try and pray for 20 minutes or half an hour or an hour or whatever it might be, then just trust. Trust that God is never outdone in generosity. God is never outdone in generosity. If you are trying to give yourself to God in prayer, trust and know that He will have taken that time and used it to bring about an inner transformation within you. You may not feel it, but we know that God is never outdone in generosity. And finally, remember these words of Mother Teresa. We are called to be faithful, not necessarily successful. We are called to try and give ourselves to the Lord in prayer. We're not necessarily called to succeed. At the end of the day, success is God's business, not ours.